Well, let's get straight into it. So, when I was 19 years old, I was a victim of domestic violence. And at the time, this particular relationship was my first real relationship. I had just graduated high school the year prior to, and I was starting my first year in college, community college specifically. And I was into this guy so much. I loved his swag, just out the gates. He had confidence. He was from up north. He had that whole accent thing working. He was just okay. And so I was really, really into him, and I really, really thought he was into me. A mutual friend of ours is how we got into a relationship. And so in the very beginning of the relationship, it was extremely fine. We went on dates. We spent time talking. It was just he was very, very intelligent. I just was really into him. I kind of shared with him what I did in the community, and but I didn't talk a lot about that. He just knew that I was in college and that he thought I was very, very attractive, and he thought I was smart. And so we just had great conversation, and we were pretty much compatible. Maybe within 2 or 3 months into the relationship, I had received a page from him because I did not have a cell phone. I was 19 and I had not started working yet, so I had a pager. And so he paged me 911, and so I went down to the corner store because Miss Marilyn and Mr. Rufus did not allow boys to call my house, and I couldn't call them. Okay, they shut that down. So I walked to the corner store and I picked up the phone and called him, and what he shared with me on this conversation was mind-blowing to me. He was attempting to break up with me because he was sexually active. And what he found out in the beginning of our relationship is that I was a virgin. And by me being a virgin, I was not participating in any form of sexual activity at all. And in the beginning, he respected that. He didn't try to pressure me into having sex with him or anything. And so I was excited about having somebody who was, had all this swag and, real just grimy gutter, respected the fact that I was a virgin. I was just like, this has got to be like the perfect situation. He's smart, he's intelligent, and then to know that he's trying to break up with me for the very reason he said he respected me was confusing to me. However, he was like, look, I'm used to having sex, you're not, you're a virgin, and I respect that, and so I just think it's best that we go our separate ways. Mind blown. I was like, so you mean to tell me you're gonna break up with me because we're not involved sexually? I was like, is that going to be the only thing that's going to hold this relationship, that's going to break this relationship up? And he told me yes. And I was like, oh, how about we have sex and we keep this relationship alive? Because to me, I felt like I didn't value virginity enough for this relationship to be ended, or I didn't value my virginity over this relationship, like at all. Like it was like, look, we're having a great relationship. Sex ain't that big of a deal. I didn't really value it that way. And so because I didn't value it, he was like, are you sure? And I was like, absolutely. So we planned to do the do. And little did I know at that moment when I chose to get involved with him sexually, I didn't know from that moment until the rest of our relationship that our relationship would turn into the worst. From that moment, he was mentally, physically, and emotionally abusive to me. He even shared with me one time while we were, I was at his home. He shared with me, your family doesn't even know where you are. And he knew that my family was not a supporter of me dating at that age because of the simple fact that I had other things that I, needed to be doing and focusing on. And so, they knew where I was most of my time. And so he was like, your family don't even know where you are. If I was to rape you right now, nobody would know anything, and it would just be too bad. And as he was saying this to me, he had his forearm on my chest and he was pressing me down. And at first I didn't know if it was a joke. Now, again, as a 19-year-old, I'm thinking to myself, no, like he's just being dramatic. But there were other things that had led up to him talking to me this way. He had at one point he got upset with me, and he had taken his hands were huge, and so because his hands were really huge and my neck is very, very small, he took his hands and he placed them around my throat. He never squeezed them, he never strangled me, but he was showing me in that moment that I have the power and control, and do not make me upset, because I will use my strength to really, really hurt you. And so I was just shocked, never afraid, but shocked, like, really? So I registered his behavior, him trying to attempt to rape me, his behavior of him trying to choke me, his behavior of even embarrassing me in a public place, as my fault, because I was doing things to cause him to act in that way. So I would try to change my behavior. I would, get really silent, or I would isolate myself from people that I loved spending time with, so that he wouldn't get upset. He would try to share with me. He didn't want me to hang out with certain friends, because if I did and he wasn't aware of it, he would think it was some foul play involved, and he would get upset, and then he would blame me. He would want to break up with me. He would try to commit suicide. I mean, all of these things that were happening to me in this relationship with somebody I loved and I trusted. And I didn't understand that it wasn't about what I was doing to him. It was about he had an issue. There was something wrong with him. But I was so focused on my devotion to him that I ignored the signs. I remember he had asked me to move in with him. And what I quickly also noticed is that anytime he would get upset or he would get frustrated, he would say it was my fault that he was mad, or he would try to encourage me to help him take his own life, or he would be going through whatever mental challenges he would be going through at the time. He would want me to be either his scapegoat, or he wanted me to be his savior. And so because I recognized that he was dealing with some form of challenges mentally, I felt like I couldn't leave him. I felt like I couldn't break up with him. I felt like if I left him at this vulnerable place, what kind of person would I be? I didn't want him to take his own life and it be my fault. I didn't want to hear about it on the news. I said, you know what? I can save him. So I wanted to pretend to be his savior, and didn't recognize that it was ultimately hurting me. He wanted me to move in with him, and he came to my parents' house and wanted, sit down with them and let them know that this is what he wanted to do. My father wasn't available, and no one knew how abusive he was to me. I didn't tell anybody because I felt like it wasn't none of nobody's business. And so, we'll fix it out. I'll figure it out. I'll make adjustments. As I was trying to do, it still didn't work. Came and sat down and talked to my mom. Hey, this is what I want to do, really, really into her. And I'm thinking that, we can take our relationship to the next level. I'd like her to move in with me. I mean, got to give him credit for coming to my mom to try to, whatever. He didn't try to sneak me out the house. But he came to her and she was like, she's not in a position right now to be able to be what you need her to be. She's still very, very young. She has her whole life ahead of her. This is all the things that she's doing in the community. She's this. Like, my mom laid out my entire resume at 19 to the guy that I was dating to let him know this is not who you want to be in a relationship with right now, or she don't need to be moving out with you. We started pushing the issue. He and I were standing as a unified front to say, no, we can do this. We stood together as a unified front to say, no, we can do this. No. So my mom got frustrated and she was like, you know what? I'm done. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead. So she stepped away. And so he and I were talking. And as she stepped away, she came back and she was like, you know what? Absolutely not. You cannot take my daughter from here.